Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi and today we have another San Diego Regionals team report and I am joined by another top player, your reigning North American champion, James Evans. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Adi. Thank you for having me on the channel once again. I am very excited to actually talk about this team, like way more than my NAIC team.
I'm really excited to have you too. This team is very cool, very unique, and of course you piloted it all the way to a top 8 finish at the San Diego Regional Championships, the biggest regional we've had since at least 2013. But first, do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, as we've gone over, my name is James Evans. I most notably have won the 2022 North American International Championships. If you don't know me from that, you probably know me from 2018 Worlds, where I won that in the seniors division, or this most recent performance where I just got top 8 at San Diego Regionals. I've been playing for about 6 years at this point, and I'm still going strong. So, I don't really know where to go with that, but like now you have that information.
Yeah. And so, like you just said, you've been around for a while. Racking up accomplishments both at seniors and now most recently in masters. And yeah, so you've been in the situation of like a brand new format, first regional of the year, a number of times. And so this is probably not new to you, but how did you approach the lead up to San Diego in the month or so that we had this format?
Okay, so this is like probably the most difficult I've ever had, like starting out a new format. Obviously we didn't know the format for like 2 weeks, and then they dropped it on us, and they were like, "All right, no Paradox Pokemon allowed." And I was like, "Oh, that really sucks because I actually liked these guys." Um, but for a while, I kind of was just super aimless in team building. Like I was using a lot of the standard stuffs, like Goldango, Garchomps, Murkrow, like things that were very kind of quote unquote well balanced, like good stuffs, and I didn't really get a feel for any of them. I immediately knew that I didn't like Murkrow because it felt very similar to Whimsicott in that you like cannot make good game plans around it. You can only make like a singular game plan and hope that it goes like according to plan, or else it gets like super thrown off balance and you just can't win. And I was finding like a lot of teams were similar to that. Like a lot of Pokemon in general from Generation 9 have this kind of inconsistent value to them, where something like Armarouge is very good when the opponent doesn't know what it's doing. And obviously, in general, that's very easy to take advantage of. When no one knows what you're doing, it's very easy to make a Pokemon good. But because San Diego is open team sheet, and we knew that from the get go, I was very confident that like a lot of strategies I was seeing on ladder weren't going to work. Namely Indeedee Armarouge, which was like super popular around the time. Dondozo was something I was very skeptical of, like from the beginning. I didn't like how it played. But there was one tournament that happened online, and a couple of you may know this, but it was Nathaniel Sittler who won with a team that did involve Indeedee Armarouge, but it also involved Cetitan and Abomasnow. And I found that very interesting, like immediately, because I've always been like a big weather guy. I like running weather. I think it's pretty like additive to any team and like slappable in general. Just having control over some element of the board makes it like a very good presence to begin with. But I didn't like Torkoal, and I didn't like Tyranitar for the most part because I felt like Tyranitar matched up poorly into a lot of the common Pokemon, and Torkoal was often either very reliant on like all 5 of its partners to set it up for something, or kind of vice versa, where Torkoal isn't doing a whole lot itself and it's just setting Sun for a lot of its partners to do things. But Abomasnow is really interesting. Abomasnow is kind of like a very weird middle ground between the two, where it has very immediate precedence. Like it kind of demands respect in preview immediately, similar to pretty much every weather Pokemon. But it has a really interesting typing in Ice and Grass, which is a really, weirdly enough, like super good offensive typing. It hits a lot of common Pokemon for a lot of damage. Blizzard's very strong in general. Like Aurora Veil also lets it do a support job that a lot of weather setters don't usually have, unless it's something like Torkoal with Yawn or Pelipper with Tailwind and Wyguard. So it was very unique in that aspect. It kind of covers a lot of middle grounds that Torkoal doesn't quite fit. Tyranitar doesn't quite fit. Pelipper kind of fits that role, which is why it was probably a lot more popular than Abomasnow to begin with, because it's very much easier to run Rain and build around it. But I decided to stick with Abomasnow, and I can't really tell you why. I just kind of liked it a lot. And then the second half was Cetitan, which was very much like rooted in like the snow aspect of the team. And I kind of found it very similar to Tyranitar and Excadrill of days of old, where it was very flexible in how you could approach when the snow goes up or when it like you need it to go up. Cetitan is really interesting, however, where a lot of sweeper Pokemon in weather are generally frail, like super frail. Cetitan is not. It is ungodly bulky. And like this Pokemon just becomes absurdly bulky, and I found that like was super appealing to me because you already have Abomasnow setting up Aurora Veil. You have the Snow Boost, which is something new that Generation 9 added, which is completely absurd, by the way. It really makes it just like this unkillable monster. And like with the Slush Rush, you can go super fast with this thing. It has really solid coverage. It's just a little weak, which is like kind of worrisome in some scenarios, but it wasn't enough to like deter me from like trying it out. And when I tried it out, I kind of just immediately fell in love with it. It felt very flexible. Like just by the build itself, I'm not kind of having to play super aggressive like Tyranitar and Lycanroc are. It has enough flexibility, kind of similar to like Pelipper and Palafin, where you can kind of play defensively with both of them or set them up for an end game. And I don't know, it just felt right, like compared to everything I was running. And it kind of raised a lot of eyebrows within my friend group, where they were like kind of all testing like tried and true stuff, or they were going out of the way to test Pokemon that were kind of catching on in the metagame, like Baxcalibur. But for a solid month and a half, I was just testing out Snow. And from the get-go, actually, a lot of these Pokemon were just kind of intact with the team. Gothitelle, Rotom, and Hydreigon were all immediately like placed there to begin with. Because I didn't really like Nate's choices of Indeedee, Armourouge, Annihilate, and Hydreigon. Even though I also have my own Hydreigon, that's kind of hypocritical. But his sets were very much early format, I would argue, where we're going to take advantage of our our opponent being inexperienced and not knowing what these new Pokemon are. And when you go into a 10-round best-of-3 regional with open sheet, you cannot expect that to happen. So I was very determined to figure out what would make Snow very consistent, because we already have a very good kind of concept where weather and two strong Pokemon that are like good offensively and defensively can kind of that we can kind of build around. So Rotom was immediately added because I just like how Rotom plays. Gothitelle was added because Shadow Tag was very like initially like appealing to me. And Hydreigon was added just because we need something to do like very quick and fast offensive damage. Dragon Dark's a really good type for this team. And then for a while, I kind of meandered on what would eventually be the Tauros. Initially, it was Annihilate, and that was another Pokemon that I initially kept from Nate 6 because I figured very bulky, very punishes a lot of Intimidate Pokemon, you know, like Arcanine and Tauros, Pokemon this team kind of don't want to see. Set up on them, just click Rage Fist, and then kill everything. And for a while, that was kind of working because I liked the appeal of having a bulky setup Pokemon next to my Aurora Veil user. But for a while, it kind of started to just not click. Like, it didn't do a whole lot for the team. Ghost was a kind of difficult type to put in this team because it didn't really hit much from the get-go. And I already had Pokemon that hit Goldango and other Ghost types very confidently. So Annihilate kind of just lagged behind the rest of the party and forced everyone to kind of play around its speed. And then for a while, I chose Gyarados because Gyarados was another water type, and this team did need a water type. Like just initially, because I was struggling with fire types. I was struggling with Goldango. I just need another defensive Pokemon initially off the bat because Cetitan cannot get there. But Gyarados also kind of didn't click because it was taking too much time setting up to do any damage, and any set that I tried that was not set up was kind of just like lackluster. And then after a while, I was kind of just getting tired of losing. Screw it, we're putting Tauros on there, And I pointed at my friend Kareem and I was like, you, give me a Tauros spread. And then from there, we, practiced it. And I kind of liked how it appealed. And from there, it kind of stuck on. And I just really liked how aggressive Tauros was in nature. It's not a particularly super frail Pokemon. It has Intimidate, so it lets the team kind of balance itself out. Like if it needs to play aggressive, then Tauros can come in and intimidate things. It's super fast. It can knock out a lot of things that were initially threatening the team. And then from there, it was kind of everything just fell into place, and like the team felt very consistent. It felt like I had access to pretty much any tool that I wanted at any time. And that's kind of what appealed to me the most about this team. Like in the end, was that I saw a lot of teams that were like a lot of my friends were prepping with teams that were very aggressive in nature, and that their game plans would just be built around them simply getting the knockouts that they needed to, or like playing very aggressive, and like if something goes down, then we don't have a replacement for it. This team was very much strong to my type of play style, if that makes any sense, but it was very strong to me in general because I felt like with something like Rotom Heat and Gothitelle, I could trap in what I wanted and also switch out to anything I wanted, because Rotom is capable of just volt switching into anything on this team at any time. Something like Abomasnow is a good anchor, which can set up the snow for Cetitan or just keep the team alive in general with Aurora Veil. It doesn't have to really worry about what's like happening at any particular time. It can just either set up or, switch back to get the weather going in my favor. Hydreigon's just super aggressive in general, especially with Tauros. Like they're both just very aggressive Pokemon. And Cetitan does Cetitan things. You're going to notice that I kind of left it out once the entire team came together, but it was still very useful, and having that access to the weather mode made the team just overall perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Tauros was a Pokemon that, of course, saw a lot more usage leading up to the towards the lead up to San Diego Regionals. Hydreigon's kind of everywhere, and I really do like the tools that Gothitelle gives you with Shadow Tag, Abomasnow gives you with the ability to change weather, with a screen to like. It does kind of have everything that you need, both in terms of big damage when you need it, as well as like really solid defensive options like Snarl, Aurora Veil, Shadow Tag. So it's kind of got a little bit of everything, and really gives you the ability to play into everything, which seems like it's really important, especially early format when you don't really know what to expect a lot of the times.
Exactly. Like there was a big worry for a while where I don't know what team to run, and like I just kept looking at it in my builder, and in my head I was just like, well, if I'm confident enough to run it, like, because there was no one experimenting with snow. Like there were people testing Lycanroc T-Tar, there were people all over the place testing rain, and I'm pretty sure everyone knows that by now. There were a lot of rain players that like did well at San Diego, but no one was really testing like Abomasnow, and like I was sort of unconfident for a while, like, is this really it? But I was like, nah, it's it. Like I felt confident enough in the tools that this team granted me specifically to go forward with it, and I'm like very glad I did.
Mm-hmm. And I'm really glad that Cetitan got his time in the snow, because it really is like I pulled up its stats. It is it has got a base 170 HP stat. Like it really does have crazy.
It's so fat.
And I mean, I remember I was looking at it earlier, and I was looking at it as like a sheer force user without Abomasnow. But it sounds like the hit, or the snow boost, rather, not hail anymore. The snow boost that boosts its defenses really increased its bulk as well.
Yeah, it was very unkillable. Although, what was it when snow first dropped? I was so bothered by the fact that it didn't do the chip damage anymore. There were like so many scenarios where I would set up for, like, okay, the hail's gonna take out its sash now, and then it's like, no, it doesn't. You have to take that kill yourself. Like I was like, oh, dang it. But I'm very much like glad I grew accustomed to like how snow works. I think the initial change turned off a lot of people from utilizing it, because if it had that chip damage, it would probably be a little stronger. But it's still a very cool and unique weather, like regardless.
Yeah, and do you feel like because of this like huge shift in how hail, now snow, works, do you think that people's unfamiliarity with the new weather mechanics helped you during your run?
Probably. I think a lot of people just didn't have like a lot of strong answers into an actual very aggressive weather mode that had flexibility, because a lot of the like I've mentioned before, a lot of the weather teams that you'll see are very like fast forward. We're going to pressure immediately, and like we won't give up the pressure. Like you're gonna have to be afraid of us, and like if you're not, then I guess we just die or something. But Cetitan and Abomasnow very much like demand respect from preview, but you also have to worry about like all my other 4 Pokemon and like the flexibility that those offer me. Because when you run something like Lightning Rock T-Tar, it's very redundant. Like you just have attacks. But like I said before, this team has a lot of flexibility in how it like wants to approach games. You have that weather mode, you have Volt Switch to go into anything you want. You have Shadow Tag to keep things in. You have Intimidate. You have a Scarf Hydreigon, which keeps everything like super threatened, and like you can just drop Dracos everywhere. There's a lot more tools that I'll discuss when we get into the actual like builds of the team. But like in preview, I felt like I had a lot of tools at my disposal that my opponent had to worry about like immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess on that note, do you want to walk me through the individual Pokemon and why they are trained the way they are?
Absolutely. So I feel like it would be appropriate to start with Abomasnow, and I will get it out of the way. This Pokemon is dirty. This Pokemon is absolutely dishonest. This thing is like the most underdog Pokemon of all, because you see Blizzard there, and everyone knows what Blizzard does. 10% chance to freeze. When you're constantly clicking this attack, you are getting freezes, and it is disgusting how many freezes this thing got. Like, if you're in a bad matchup, a bad scenario, just freeze it. And now suddenly, it's a lot less difficult. But Abomasnow is, like, just a very good Pokemon in general. Obviously, access to the snow, it gives that defensive, like, gives a defensive boost to it. Becomes a lot tankier. Like, its typing's just very good offensively, especially as a backbone for this team. Blizzard, obviously, very disgusting move in general. You can freeze a lot of things, just do a lot of good damage, like spread around. Energy Ball is your secondary stab. It just does good damage once again. It threatens a lot of things like Pelipper, which often got 2-hit KO'd by it, or a Palafin, which kind of usually got OHKO'd by it, surprisingly. It's just a very, like, it's surprisingly aggressive and, like, surprisingly strong. Aurora Veil was also initially like just very strong in general. I didn't click it as much throughout the tournament, but as I did like on ladder, but it was still very useful for some scenarios where I needed to clutch out a game defensively and like just kind of like reel myself back in before I accidentally clicked Blizzard or Energy Ball to just try and snipe a kill. But with Veil, you pretty much give everyone like you just spread defensive like energy around your team. That sounded like a very stupid sentence, but like you just give all your Pokemon a very good defensive backbone if Abomasnow can't be there to help them initially, or if Intimidate can't be there, or Snarl. Like basically, it's just a very useful tool for the whole team, like universally. And Protect is Protect. Abomasnow, even with the defense boost, is still pretty frail on its special side. There are a lot of Pokemon that scare it off. You just need to make sure it can live one turn at least, so that way it can either Blizzard freeze something or set up Veil or do something stupid. I don't know. Abomasnow is fantastic, and like I could not recommend it more, except for the fact that we are now changing formats. So this might be Abomasnow's only time to shine, but I'm glad I got to show it off, damn it.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned that Abomasnow is pretty frail. Did you feel like you needed the Focus Sash despite getting a defense boost and often getting up screens with it?
I felt that like in general, Abomasnow, because I wasn't super prioritized on Veil, it was just another option on it. I feel like people either kind of focused on Abomasnow clicking Blizzard all the time, or they focused on it clicking Aurora Veil all the time, excuse me. But it was, I don't know. I kind of enjoyed the middle ground of having both the defensive capabilities on Abomasnow, like ensuring that it will always survive a hit, as well as also just having good damage to be like spread around. Because especially in this format, I found where Pokemon can kind of sit there and not die like for a while. Like a Pokemon like Garganacl, like Abomasnow is kind of similar. That's gonna sound really stupid, but like opponents will either try to leave it alone or gun for it immediately. And because you have the option of blizzarding or protecting or having just a focus sash, you can kind of be a little bit more haphazardous with like how you play Abomasnow. Not saying that I was always trying to do that, but when I knew the position was good, I was like, yeah, let's just go for a blizzard and see what happens.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know that we were having discussions about putting Focus Sash on Pelipper as well, even though it's like a reasonably bulky Pokemon and it's, EV to live hits.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes you need that extra turn, and it forcing your opponent to double tap it is really annoying when it does have that 4x weakness that
Yeah.
can be very annoying and can it removes a lot of pressure from the fire types that are sitting in front of it sometimes. And so I noticed that you are Terra Water not only on Abomasnow but also on Cetitan.
Oh shoot! I totally forgot about the Terra type.
Go for it. You want to explain that?
My bad. Yeah, my bad. Totally. So yeah, Terra Water was chosen because I didn't really know what type this thing would like best. Ice is a little difficult to run because it gives you that boost to Blizzard, sure, but you also lose out on your grass typing, which is actually probably helping you more than it's doing worse for you, because chances are fire moves are going to knock you out anyways or bring you down the sash. So having the water resist I found was actually really useful initially. So they'd be like, okay, why not go grass? Grass is still weak to fire, which is difficult. So water was kind of chosen as the middle ground for Abomasnow, and it actually did come in handy in a couple of matches. The only downside is that you will lose the defense boost, and this goes for Cetitan as well. You will lose your defense boost once it is activated, and that can kind of screw you over sometimes. But generally, I didn't find that it was too harmful to the team. Generally, if I needed to survive a hit with Abomasnow, it was good enough. Like, if my back was completely against the wall. And just like a notable thing is that it does make Goldango significantly worse into you. And for a Pokemon like Abomasnow, it's like not as influential, but I'll talk about it when we get into Cetitan. It was extremely influential in making sure that Cetitan was like surviving hits.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, do you want to talk about Cetitan?
Yes, this thing is very good. I guess that's a good overview of it, but it was very strong. Like these four moves: Ice Spinner, Liquidation, Superpower, and Ice Shard. I guess I can go over them. Ice Spinner was like just super good in general. I initially tested Icicle Crash, and then I missed Icicle Crash, and then I said, okay, we're not missing Icicle Crash anymore, so let's run Ice Spinner. But this move is a little unique in its own right. It can get rid of Psychic Terrain, and I say only Psychic Terrain because no other terrains exist. I don't want to imagine Pincurchin existing right now, but getting rid of Psychic Terrain is very, very useful. Not only do you kind of cripple Armorage, you cripple Indeedee if it has a Psychic move. You reset your priority, so now I can use Fake Out again with Gothitelle or something, or Ice Shard. But just getting rid of it was super useful in general for my team. Liquidation, like Ice Spinner is also your base stab, so it's very consistent in doing damage. Liquidation was chosen as a quote-unquote secondary stab because obviously Cetitan cannot deal with fire types particularly well. So the Terra Water was also chosen for Cetitan because I didn't want to run Terra Ground. I didn't want to run anything that kind of particularly risked Cetitan being frailer in a sense, because water is a good defensive typing for it. It lets it eat Goldango hits. It lets it eat fire type hits. It doesn't really give up a lot of what Cetitan wants to do in the first place. If anything, it just helps add on to its damage against things that I need to threaten. So Liquidation hits Arcanine, hits Terra Fires on a lot of things like Hydreigon, for example, or maybe even Garchomp if they wanted to run it, which I did see a couple of in the tournament. But it was overall just good, consistent damage into anything that tried to avoid my ice type damage, because water and ice is a very consistent damage dealing combo. So oftentimes I would find myself with Cetitan and Abomasnow on the field, and I would just click Liquidation and Blizzard because there's not a whole lot that wants to switch in on that, and it does a lot of damage to anything that you can even take the hit anyways. So Superpower was also chosen because just strong damage, but it hits a lot of the Pokemon that are kind of more like niche into this, like Terra Steels or something like King Gambit, which is initially a Pokemon that a lot of people tend to bring because they see it's super strong into my snow mode. It also hits something like Hydreigon, even if it wants to stay in its base form, or Terra to something like Steel, which makes it very consistent into that. The only downside is obviously that you are going to lose attack and defense. And even with the snow boost, you're going to find that like you're taking a lot of damage with that. And especially after a -1 attack, Cetitan can find that like it's struggling to do damage. So it's a very, very much a like we're going to nuke something button, and we have to make sure that we're nuking it correctly. And And then Ice Shard is Ice Shard. Initially, a lot of people ran Heavy Slam on Cetitan, I saw. Similar to Groudon, I do not like Heavy Slam on Cetitan. I don't think it covers anything that of like worth that the other 3 moves do not. So I chose Ice Shard instead, just to give Cetitan a little bit of extra oomph and like priority, because it's a pretty slow Pokemon in general if it's outside of snow, but just in case you need to snipe a kill or something, it's there, and like it does good damage. Next up, I'm going to go over Tauros, because this kind of completes our 3 water types in a sense. But also, Tauros was obviously the last mon added, so I kind of struggled for a while to figure out what it exactly wanted to do role-wise. So initially, it was Clear Amulet, then we tried Safety Goggles, and then Kunal decided to tell me while I was struggling trying to figure out how I beat Mousehold Annihilate. He was like, dude, just run Mirror Herb. And then left the call, and I was like, okay, I understand everything now. It took me a while to understand what exactly Mirror Herb does, but it certainly is a very broken item in its own right. There's a lot you can do with this item that I didn't even particularly know that you could do, as evident by my run and some of my stream matches. But this item is really funny and like can do a lot of things. Namely, it's supposed to copy Annihilate's Defiant boost, which will give you a +2 Tauros, which does run through everything in the format. But there are so many Pokemon that just get copied by Mirror Herb. King Gambit does, something with a Quiver Dance does, Dondozo does. It becomes very absurd very quickly, and something like Tauros can become like immensely threatening to an opposing team under the right conditions, because you don't need to set up at all. They set up for you, and you just do damage. That's all you need to do with this Pokemon. So Intimidate obviously just helps spread, damage reduction around the entire team for when a Abomasnow can't, or I just need to switch in Tauros and do some offensive damage. I chose Terra Grass for this Pokemon just because I wasn't running Safety Goggles, so we needed a way to bypass a Moongus in a sense, because this team kind of struggles against the Moongus if Abomasnow's not on the field. And I found this was just the best second answer on the team, because I don't really have anywhere that I could slot in Safety Goggles, especially because I need the Mirror for Mousehold Annihilate. And I never really found that Tauros needed another Terra type anyway, so Grass was the best option available. Raging Bull is a very interesting move that I kind of went back and forth on, because once I knew that I was going with Mirror, I figured whether I wanted to run Wave Crash or not, because these are the 2 big water stab moves that you often pick between when you're using Tauros. And obviously the trade-off is Wave Crash does more damage, has recoil. Raging Bull's a little more consistent, but it has the benefit of shattering any opposing screens that you might run into. The notable change between the 2 that made me consider them was obviously Wave Crash does more damage, but that also means that it is guaranteed to kill Mousehold every time you click into it, whereas Raging Bull sometimes does not. And that worried me, because I could not bank on my opponent not being a bulky Mousehold if they were going to leave Mousehold Annihilate. That's like a stupid game plan. So I had to go back and forth, and everyone in the room told me, like when we were at San Diego, everyone in the room just told me, shut up, run Raging Bull. And I was like, okay. So we locked in Raging Bull, and it was very strong, very consistent throughout the entire tournament. Not really any complaints. I don't think I wanted Wave Crash in hindsight. It just did a lot of good damage. I didn't have to worry about Tauros taking recoil. It broke any screens that I ran into. And it was like overall just a very consistent move. I kind of felt it was very similar to Brick Break on Thundurus, where this is a Pokemon that is just going to no nonsense do the damage and break screens if it needs to. CC, Close Combat, just secondary stab, makes Tauros do a lot of damage, basically punishes anything that wants to not deal with the snow mode, like steel types or anything. It's kind of super over redundant, you'll notice, with Cetitan, where they both have water and fighting moves and a priority move, but I actually kind of enjoyed having this over redundancy on my team, where especially because there would be some game plans where I would bring both Cetitan and Tauros, and they would just knock out one and congrats, now you got to deal with the other, because they do the same thing for the most part. Except one is bulkier and one's just way more aggressive in general. So close combat, just secondary stab move, just does everything that you want it to do on a Tauros. Aqua Jet was chosen over something like Terror Blast, which I did consider for a while. Just as a priority move, it lets Tauros pick things off real quick if it needs to snipe a kill. And like with the Mirror Herb, you can do some pretty nasty damage with a +2 Aqua Jet. Like there are some kills that you can pick up that are just like hours or you need to. And then Protect is Protect on Tauros because this Pokemon is ungodly frail on its special side. You need to make sure that it can survive in general. That was just kind of the name of the game. Make sure Tauros survives. If it's going to be either weaving in Intimidates or it's going to be sitting on the field and like procking a Mirror Herb and then threatening everything, that threat can go like a really long way. And I can just protect Tauros and like stall to bring in what I need to for it to clean up the game. That's pretty much that. Rotom is very tried and true to me. I love this Pokemon a lot. This set is Choice Specs, obviously. If you know me, I love Choice Specs Rotom. This is one of my favorite sets of all time. It just does a lot of damage, and its typing is fantastic for this metagame. It like where Goldango is the #1 Pokemon, and Dondozo is a very strong like second, probably not so far behind it. Fire and Electric is a very strong typing, especially because its best competition is probably Palmot, and Palmot is not so strong. But Rotom kind of filled out a lot of the initial aggression that I wanted this team to like have, where you have Overheat, you have Thunderbolt, you can do very strong damage into a lot of Pokemon because you're like Fire and Electric just kind of hit a lot, like a very large range, and if not, Ice hits it perfectly. So like these initial 3 Pokemon in Cetitan, Abomasnow, and Rotom very much complemented each other very well. And then Volt Switch just lets you kind of pivot around, where a lot of teams in this format are built to be able to switch around, like with Grimmsnarl and Amoonguss, and very bulky Pokemon like a Rotom Wash. Because they are absolutely forced to switch out at the beginning of the turn, you kind of run into a lot of difficulties where, yeah, all of these Pokemon can switch in for each other, but there's no real trade-off in the resources you're losing. Like, you're still taking damage, you're still not really getting, you're not etching out any ground, you're just hoping that your defensive switches are good enough to survive. With something like Specs Rotom's Volt Switch, you can carve a lot of ground for your other Pokemon to kind of finish up the game, or for Rotom to come back in later once something like an Intimidate has been like landed from Tauros, or an Auroraville has been set up for it to kind of close things out, which happened a lot during the tournament. Just in general, Volt Switch with a team like this is very strong because, like I said before, you have access to all of your tools in one go. You don't, like, your opponent doesn't know what you can switch into, but you absolutely know what you can. Do you want to go to Abomasnow and set up the weather? Do you want to go to Tauros and intimidate something? Do you want to go to Hydreigon and immediately just apply pressure once again? Do you want to go to Gothitelle and set up the Shadow Tag and reset your Fake Out? Like, there's a lot of tools available to you just off the get-go from having something like a tool like Volt Switch, where Rotom, if something outruns it, it's going to take the hit comfortably, get out, bring in something that can handle the situation a little better. Or if it's something like Pelipper, for instance, I can Volt Switch off the Pelipper, knock it out, take a free kill. I don't have to sit there and make sure I had to lock onto Thunderbolt, so Rotom has to stay in. I can just Volt Switch out, get what I need in quick, and Rotom can sit in the back for when it's needed again. So overall, just a very consistent Pokemon, does a lot of damage, reliably, super bulky. It's in a very good speed range. So, like, overall, just a very well-rounded Pokemon that this team needed, just to kind of complement everything and really hold it together. And then Trick was decided as its last move, just off the kind of concept that, like, I'm not using Discharge because I have no ground types. I have nothing that's immune to electric. So Trick was the, like, kind of last ditch move that you could really throw on Rotom, like a Specs Rotom to begin with. And there are a lot of scenarios where I actually found that Trick was super useful. Not even just in tournament, but just like hypothetically. There's a lot that you can do with this move. And the one thing I found was the most funny thing to do with it is trick a setup Pokemon like Annihilate, Choice Specs, because they're pretty slow if they're setup variety. So you can trick them a Choice Specs, and suddenly their bulk up becomes completely useless, and they have to switch out to get any like movement or ground back. And at that point, they're pretty much screwed, because if they want to lock into Rage Fist, they have to assume that you're going to be hitting into them. If they lock into Drain Punch, then they're not locking into Rage Fist. So there's a lot of kind of unique scenarios I found where Rotom can pin things down that the other Pokemon could not, just because it was capable of being like, hey, you want this choice specs? You can take it. This is whatever. I don't care. Give me your leftovers. And especially with Gothitelle, because you can do stupid things like trick the Frigoraph, a choice specs, as it sets up Trick Room. And now suddenly it's setting up Trick Room for the rest of the game and cannot do anything. And it can't switch out. It can't do anything. It's completely absurd, and it never happened in tournament, but it did happen a lot on ladder. And I thought it was absurdly funny for no reason. But overall, Rotom was a fantastic Pokemon. I think I literally brought it to every single game in San Diego. Like that and Abomasnow were brought to every single game, I'm pretty sure. Because I just liked the consistency between it. It let me get like access to everything on my team very consistently. But next up, we should talk about Gothitelle. And Gothitelle was a Pokemon I found very appealing in the initial build of the team. I was like, oh yeah, that's like really strong. Let's just run Gothitelle, Shadow Tag in general. Yeah, that'll be good. Goth did not come as much as I wanted to during tournament, but the threat of it initially scares a lot of people. This is Terra Dark, which is kind of common on Gothitelle. As in, you can block ghost types, so you don't have to worry about Goldengo's Shadow Ball. You block Taunt, which is really useful from something like Murkrow. It's just a very good defensive typing for Gothitelle to assume if you absolutely do not need to Terra anything else. And it also boosts Foul Play, which was the attacking move I chose on this Gothitelle. Just kind of consistent in general, lets you do damage without Gothitelle really having to do damage. You can punish setup. You can punish something like a Dondozo, where Psychic isn't really doing a whole lot to it. So a Foul Play can do a lot. It can break a substitute on it, or it can just do good damage because Gothitelle wants to be in the Dondozo matchup anyways. Fake Out is Fake Out, so you can just click Fake Out, and Gothitelle can pressure something immediately with something like Rotom or Hydreigon. Helping Hand was very strong on this Pokemon in general. It was kind of the move I was clicking the most, I felt, where Gothitelle can pair up to something next, like Abomasnow, and now this Pokemon that was initially just a good damage dealer is now a complete monster and threat, where its fourth move, Trick Room, can just set up for Abomasnow, and now they are pinned in with a Abomasnow in snow, and the Gothitelle that is constantly spamming Helping Hand, and they can't really do much about that until they die. So I found Gothitelle conceptually very strong on paper for this team, especially because Shadow Tag is kind of very good right now. There's only one notable Pokemon that can switch out of it, and it's Goldango, just off the bat. And I wasn't really bringing Gothitelle to Goldango matchups anyways, so a lot of the times I found Gothitelle was capable of trapping in a lot of Pokemon that I wanted to get off the field quickly. With something like aggressive, like Rotom and Hydreigon, you can kind of clear out the field very quickly to etch yourself a lot of ground, especially with Helping Hand and like a Terra Electric Thunderbolt or a Draco Meteor. You can just pick things up very quickly. So I found Gothitelle, even if I wasn't using it much in tournament, there were games where I brought it and it did, pull through, and it did work out like very well. It just wasn't brought as much as the other. So I don't really have a lot to say about it, but conceptually it was really strong. And when I needed it to work, it was very good. So I'm not going to complain. And then finally we have Hydreigon. And I'm going to just say right now, Hydreigon was extremely no nonsense. I just said, screw it. We're going to make this thing Choice Scarf. We're going to just play super aggressive with it. I don't have to worry about other Hydreigon speed ties. I can just do my thing. Draco Meteor, obviously, stab, just do a lot of damage, kill something real quick. Dark Pulse, again, big stab, just do damage real quick. This one's a little more consistent. Heat Wave, because this Hydreigon was Terra Fire, I didn't really like how Terra Steel played. I didn't like how Terra Poison played. Heat Wave is like just kind of very consistent in doing damage, especially against the threats to this team. Something like a Meowscarada and Goldango lead can be very scary, especially because they can just do a lot of damage. So Hydreigon kind of assumed the role of, we're going to beat everything that initially beats these six, because you can just Terra to Fire and then click Fake Out with something like Gothitelle, and then you kind of blow through Goldango and Meowscarada very quickly. And then Snarl was chosen as its last move because with Choice Scarf, you can kind of do a lot of funny things with this guy. But namely, Snarl does like do good damage to a lot of things, but also because you are guaranteed to outrun some threats like Salamence, other Hydreigons, you can just Snarl them, and suddenly you don't die to whatever they throw, and your partner doesn't die to whatever. So now you can just kind of etch up a lot more ground, especially with something like Gothitelle once again, where you can just click Snarl over and over and over again, and they cannot switch out, or like you just completely punish their setup. Or in the 1 in 1 billion chance that you get to do it, Snarl and Annihilate that has switched in after your Tauros Intimidate activate their Defiance so your Mirror Herb can copy their boost, which was something that happened. It was like nuts. It's just very consistent in dealing damage. Obviously, Hydreigon's a little inaccurate. It has 3 moves that can miss, and boy did it sure miss all of them in tournament. But I feel like it was a necessary evil to have for the team. It just was very aggressive. It kind of filled up the role that I needed it to. Dark Dragon is a very good offensive type. It especially complements this team. And that's pretty much it. I feel like I went over the team enough individually, so yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good overview of the Pokemon. And one thing I noticed is that you have 5 defensive Terras on the team, the exception being Rotom. I guess like Hydreigon and Gothitelle can also have offensive attacks that can take advantage of it. But
Yeah.
that is something that I've also seen on like Jody's team and on my team, and Angel's team, that the top cut as well. So that seems like the way that at least Series 1 is going. Did you like defensively Terra-ing, or did you think that did you feel like you wanted to like click buttons with Hydreigon and Rotom a little more when you play this team?
Kind of 50-50, honestly. I did find a lot of scenarios where I was terroring defensively, especially with something like Abomasnow or Tauros that needed to, for just one turn, either hang on or bypass this Amoonguss so we can knock something out quickly. I found that I was doing that a lot early on in the tournament when I was confident in knowing what I was doing. I very much usually went for the Terra with Hydreigon and Rotom because they do a lot of defensive things. Like I didn't really go over Terra Electric on Rotom, but there's a notable difference in being a fire electric type and a pure electric type. Notably that you have no weaknesses. So even when it was aggressive, like it's obviously a very offensive Terra type on Rotom, it's still giving me like a benefit of a defensive type because I still have access to my Fire Stab, but because Rotom can now just click Terra Electric, Thunderbolt, or Volt Switch, it's doing way more damage and it's just being super aggressive. But it still has the benefit of like dodging something like a Palafin that wants to try and like get a quick kill on it, which did happen a lot. I saw a lot of Palafins that tried to go for they would hard switch into the Pelipper and they would Terra to Water and Jet Punch immediately, and they would try and take out Rotom before it could do anything. And because I Terra to Electric in almost every scenario where that happened, I ended up hanging on just barely, and I was able to knock it out. Especially with something like Hydreigon too, where Terra Fire is very aggressive because you can just click Heat Wave over and over again. But there were also just scenarios where, yeah, it's very defensive because it lets you wall Goldango and it lets you just kind of eat hits a little more comfortably, especially Draco Meteors, which was like super notable with something like Snarl, where you can just Snarl them, Terra to Fire, and now Draco's not really doing a whole lot to you or your partner. And it's like very strong in general. I think defensive Terra types were kind of the way to go, especially in the sense that like having access to Terra types that were very consistent. Like, a good example is Palafin just being Terra Water, because there's not really a way to go wrong with that. Because if you don't want to Terra anything defensively, you can just Terra the Palafin and do more damage, and now it's more of a threat. And that was kind of the idea I went behind with something like Rotom, where since it's capable of switching into everything consistently, let's just make it a very consistent damage dealer, because Terra Electric Volt Switch hurts. And like over time, that's going to build up. And if not, I will just simply go for Thunderbolt and take the kill immediately. So overall, I think I had a good mix of offensive and defensive Terras. Like they had enough scenarios where I was capable of going offensive with them or defensive with them if I needed to.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And then earlier you mentioned that you said you might have brought Rotom and Abomasnow to basically every game this tournament.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about what your common game plans were, and if you had any specific matchups or you had like very rigid game plans for?
Okay. So yeah, like I said before, team's very flexible, but I did almost bring a bomb. I like literally I brought Rotom probably also did too. Just because you have access to a lot of pivots and a lot of resources available with a lot of Pokemon, and you have the choice whether to play aggressive or defensive from the start. Generally, I did bring Abomasnow and Rotom to a lot of the matchups where like something like Murkrow, something like Dondozo, something like Baxcalibur Salazzle. These are all kind of matchups where I initially brought these two guaranteed because there's really no harm and foul in like bringing them both. Especially Rain. Rain was a notable matchup that I had where like I just brought these two every time because I wasn't particularly afraid of what they did. And like over time, I think something that I realized was like, especially while playing this team in tournament, is that a lot of the game plans that I had initially uh weren't particularly strong. Like there were a lot of things that I learned throughout the tournament that like I kind of changed what I was like playing. And I played a lot differently than I did in practice. But also that kind of shakeup I think was something that like my opponents were not expecting. So I had a very consistent anchor in something like a Abomasnow. And oftentimes game one, let's say like I would bring something like Cetitan and Rotom and Hydreigon, and that would be good enough, and maybe it wouldn't close out the game. But now I have access to something like Tauros, which is just initially way more aggressive from the start, and it also punishes setup. And like there's a lot of flexibility with this team. But something like Abomasnow was always present between all my game plans, especially so, like again, like Rotom and Abomasnow were very consistent because something like Murkrow again, where you can just lead Rotom, and there's very little that they can do to punish that because you either want to claim Murkrow immediately so it can't do any shenanigans, or you just Terra Electric and like claim their partner, and now Murkrow's on the field and it can't do anything. And then Abomasnow eventually will come in and click Blizzard and pretty much wipe the field with everything else. And if it's not those two, well, there's still two other healthy Pokemon like Tauros, which has Intimidate, and it just keeps everything alive, or something like Cetitan or Hydreigon, which can just go on the like the offensive and take kills. And like generally, I found that when I was playing like that, I didn't really find a need for Gothitelle because the Shadow Tag wasn't necessary to, keep my game plan under control. But in general, I found I'm trying to explain this. I apologize. But like I just found that like because I had two very reliable anchors in Abomasnow and Rotom, a lot of my game plans were super flexible. So something like Dondozo would always kind of just fall into the same line of like I'm going to lead Hydreigon because Hydreigon pressures everything on this team immediately, especially because I'm Choice Scarf. They cannot do anything with Meowscarada to threaten me. And Gothitelle makes a very strong lead into it as well because it's going to get pinned and it can't switch out. So if they want to lead Dondozo, they have to lead Dondozo. Otherwise, I just claim 2 kills and I'm fine. And then something like Abomasnow and Rotom would be in the back where they can just clean up the game very confidently because at that point, either their resources are depleted or Abomasnow and Rotom can just come in mid-turn and cover very defensively well for the Pokemon that I had initially, or they can just come in and do damage very well for like something like Gothitelle, which wants to switch out and refresh Fake Out, or Hydreigon, which wants to come back in later if they tried to preserve Pokemon like Goldango, which could switch out of the Shadow Tag. But that was like my initial game plan. And then over time, I kind of realized something like Tauros was good anyways, because it has Intimidate and it can threaten anything in general. And like I said earlier, it can copy Dondozo's boost with Mirror Herb. So if you get rid of the Dondozo, it becomes literally unkillable and you just win automatically. I hate to sound like I'm just being like, oh yeah, everything kind of matches up well into everything. But it really kind of did feel like the truth. I never felt like any of my options were off the table when building, or like when playing this team in tournament. I only felt like there were just better answers for a given scenario and like slightly like worse off. Nothing felt completely off the table.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of, I mean, that's always a good feeling. Like, it's not that every matchup is like super favorable. It's just that every matchup is like playable and fairly
Yeah,
even,
it's winnable.
and that allows you to play better than your opponent, which is super valuable. And it's cool that you managed to be able to do that. Especially like, for example, Dondozo. I feel like a lot of people feel like you look at the team sheet and you're not really playing Pokemon. You're just like seeing if your answers match up well. But I think Gothitelle specifically does such a good job of like forcing them to actually play Pokemon because they can't switch out, and so they have to like be very. They don't have the option whenever they're in the bad spot to just double switch into Dondozo or Tatsugiri. They have to like position well in front of it and think through their lines really carefully. And then obviously you have all the tools and all the bulk and all the offensive options to kind of play into everything else as well. But that specifically is my favorite interaction that we've talked about.
Yeah, it was really good because like I think one of the strengths of this team especially is because like especially in Dondozo, when you look at someone's open sheet, you kind of scan their Dondozo answer immediately. If you're the Dondozo, you got to see what has haze. All right, like you see the Murkrow has haze, and then you simply build your game plan around let's kill Murkrow immediately, and then we'll clean up the rest of the game with Dondozo. When you look at my sheet, you kind of don't see anything that beats Dondozo initially. Bad. It's just good Pokemon that beat Dondozo. Like there's nothing, there's no haze, there's no like unaware trick skill swap thing with the Mirror Herb. It is simply just we are going to do damage to the Dondozo and its partners, and whatever we kill, we will kill. And then once Dondozo and Tatsugiri are left by itself, we'll clean those up too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess on that note, I am curious to hear how your tournament run went. And so do you have any
oh my god,
do you have a couple notable games from your tournament run that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about a couple. I'm not going to go through all of them because I've been here for a while and I do not need another James Evans not the sequel, not yet, but
next time you win internets we can do this.
Yeah, literally give it 1 month. But there were a lot of fun games. I'm gonna go over my loss. I'll go over. There wasn't a whole lot of notable games for the start of the tournament, but during the end, obviously, I played Judy Azzarelli on stream, and this was like a really fun matchup. But I also felt like I played like pretty bad. But my line of thinking over like this is weird to go over first, but it was kind of one of those things where I just kind of learned the matchup as I went because I'd seen the team on ladder, but I didn't really know how to play it yet. And this will kind of, I'll talk about this in a minute, but it was like, yeah, I didn't really know what I was doing into it. So I kind of just ran matchups that ran lines that I knew. And Judy did just kind of play better than me, especially game 3 where he terrored the Mence to steal and clicked Draco into me. And I immediately realized like after I was like, wait, why didn't I just Draco the like, and I was like, oh, I just look like an idiot on stream. But overall, like, he played that really well, and I couldn't break the Goldango over it. And that was something I kind of noted down in my head, because that had been my second loss to, like, leftovers Goldango of the day. And it was something I was kind of thinking about a lot. I was like, I need to figure out a way to break this thing. And now I have taken 2 losses to it. I think I've kind of figured it out. But we'll get back to that in a minute. I wanted to go over my win-in match, however, against Brandon Wright, and I had to pull up his team to like make sure I remembered it exactly. But as soon as I went into this matchup, there were 2 things that entered my head, and I looked at the team sheet and I was like, okay, you got this. This is fine. This is literally like Snow's dream matchup because you can superpower the T-Tar. You have the anti-weather for it. And you also have Tauros, which runs through everything. And this was the first matchup of the entire day out of 10 rounds that I had brought Gothitelle. And I looked at it in the team preview and I was like, it is your time to shine. Get out here. Like, and it certainly did put in work. My opponent had like Terra Steel, Hydreigon with Focus Energy, and he led it with Indeedee. And I immediately kind of threw caution to the wind and I led Cetitan and Tauros. And this is one of those matchups where just getting rid of the Psychic Terrain was huge for me. And this was like why I found Ice Spinner like actually really good, because they just clicked follow me turn 1. I clicked Raging Bull and Ice Spinner, and now their Indeedee is super threatened and like it can't do much. And the Psychic Terrain's gone, so my priority is back. And now Gothitelle is super threatening with Fake Out, and it will lock anything in. And then from there, I kind of just played game 1 like usual, because Tauros, they had Lycanroc and T-Tar in the back, and there's not a lot my opponent can do against an Abomasnow, a Tauros, and a Cetitan in snow once the snow's set up. So I was very confident in my game plan. And going into game 2, let's just say I didn't play very well. They do the same thing. They set up, except this time, instead of going for Focus Energy immediately, they Draco into my Tauros immediately. And if you've ever seen Draco Meteor go into Tauros, you know that thing is as like weak, especially as Kartana. It just dies instantly. And I was like, oh, that's new. But whatever, it's fine. We'll just break through with Cetitan and we'll be fine. A couple of turns later, I find myself on death's door. It is Abomasnow and Gothitelle versus the world, and they certainly do have Lycanroc, T-Tar, and Hydreigon, like, all at decent health. And their Tyranitar was AV, so it was extremely difficult to break through. So I click Fake Out with Gothitelle, as you do, and then something very special happens. Something once a millennia happens. And Abomasnow decides to double freeze my opponent because I click Fake Out into the Hydreigon, so it can't move. I'm faster than the Tyranitar. I click Blizzard. It certainly does double freeze, but here's the cool thing that you may not know about freeze in this game. You can see when it happens before it actually happens because the Pokemon will stop moving. As soon as the turn loads. So I saw Tyranitar freeze, and I was like, oh my god, this is huge. But would you know that I just completely lied to you because Hydreigon was moving, and then it got frozen, and it kept moving. This game is awesome. So I got the double freeze, and Hydreigon was still moving, and I'm like, okay, does that mean it's going to unthaw? Or like, what is it? Still moving, but it's frozen, so let's go for Blizzard spam and hope that it works because it's Terra Steel and also the Tyranitar's AV, so I got my work cut out for me here. But they stay frozen both for 3 turns, which is enough for Abomasnow to break through with Blizzard spam. And at that point, it's 1 HP Lycanroc versus Gothitelle and Abomasnow, and I am able to clutch out the game. Or should I say Abomasnow was able to clutch out the game because I certainly didn't do anything. This Pokemon is disgusting when it works. And that is literally something Abomasnow can do, and it did happen throughout the tournament a lot where I'd be like, oh, this is a bad spot. Clicks Blizzard, freezes, and now suddenly I'm in an okay spot. And you know what? I'm okay with that. That's the game we play. So thank you, Abomasnow, for winning my in to cut.
Yeah. That's how it works, right? 10% of the time it's going to freeze. 1% of the time it's going to double freeze.
Yeah, exactly.
Clicking it up, it's going to happen.
And sometimes the game will just ignore that and keep the Pokemon moving anyway. But alas, as soon as that happened, I went to top 32. And guess what? We're talking about Palafin Rain again. Oh boy. I didn't kind of go over this matchup a lot to begin with in the beginning when we were talking about matchups, but because I figured I would go over it here. But in top 32, I pulled Cedric Bernier. And the notable thing about his team that I noticed immediately that I didn't have to sweat over was he didn't have Goldango. And Goldango caused a lot of problems initially because it's a steel type. It can't be faked out. It can switch out on my Shadow Tag, and it just has pretty good stabs in general. If it gets a nasty plot up, I'm in big trouble. And the rain covers overheat, so I can't do anything to it. Or I can't knock it out in one shot. They had a Palmot instead. And I immediately knew, once again, this was Gothitelle's time to shine. And at that point, I figured, okay, well, I didn't really get to... I figured Hydreigon was good into the matchup, and I knew Gothitelle was going to be brought here. They didn't have a way to bypass its Shadow Tag. And when there's no way to bypass Shadow Tag, range struggles a lot. Especially because I have my own weather once again. So I figured all 3 games were going to lead Hydreigon and Gothitelle because I was scared of Salamence. I was scared of Palmot and Palafin. I needed to answer them all immediately. And Goth can fake out one of them and keep them all in, no matter what. And as long as Palafin isn't flip turning out of my Shadow Tag, I'm fine. Game 1, I go for an obsessively hard read, and it was the literal complete opposite. Cedric just completely got the turn right, and I got it completely wrong. And from there, Palafin kind of just got set up and ran through me. Except for the fact that I would be saying that unless I got a freeze on the Amoonguss, which suddenly meant Palafin could not defend itself for like 8 turns, and Abomasnow was going to win the game until suddenly Amoonguss unthawed on the one turn I needed it to, and by then I had unfortunately terrored my Abomasnow to water to try and survive a wave crash, and it got redirected, which is kind of a drawback of terror water Abomasnow. But I was like, okay, whatever. The freeze didn't go my way. But I learned a lot from how Cedric wanted to play game 1, that he was going to lead Palafin and Palmot. He was going to try and get out immediately. And I kind of used that for my game 2 plan. So game 2, I lead Hydreigon Gothitelle again. And this time I'm like, all right, no nonsense. Let's take out this Palafin. I miss Draco turn 1. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm screwed. Click X. They went for close combat onto my Hydreigon. And because it was choice banded, it almost got the kill. But fortunately, my Hydreigon hangs on with like barely any HP. And because I know it is now choice locked into close combat, I know Palafin's not going to be able to switch out. And at this point, I know I'm primed to take 2 kills now, because Palmot's not going to do a lot here, and Palafin is certainly not doing a lot here. So from there, I pretty much line everything up with Draco Meteors, knock out Palafin and Palmot, and his back was Amoonguss Pelipper, which I figured, okay, that's not like too strong or whatever. No, it is completely strong, and it can actually close out the game, and it's very scary, and I have to respect it a lot. Because his Pelipper was very bulky, and Amoonguss can Pollen Puff and Spore, and it causes a lot of issues. So I kind of took that info away from game 2, because I set up Trick Room with Gothitelle once Palmot and Palafin were gone, because I figured Hydreigon would go down at some point so I could bring in Abomasnow, and finish off everything with Blizzard. And because this is kind of an interaction that I ran into a lot, Pelipper and Abomasnow kind of often will either be around the same like speed stat, or like one will clearly be higher than the other, and it's very obvious to notice when that happens, but you can't be 110% sure until you see both on the screen and you see what the turn order is. And from game 2, I found out that I was faster than his Pelipper. So in Trick Room, I had to immediately worry about his Pelipper doing things, especially because I'm the one setting up Trick Room, so I had to decide when Trick Room goes up and when it goes down. Game 3. We both lead the same leads, Hydreigon, Gothitelle, Palmot, and Palafin. I immediately decide I'm going to click Terrifier on my Hydreigon, and we're going to Draco Meteor into the Palafin. Because I figured Cedric's kind of wised up a bit. He's not going to go for Fake Out. He's going to go for close combat with Palmot to try and get a quick kill, like, early on. And he's going to try and flip turn with this Palafin. I also call this completely wrong. He certainly does trade Fake Outs with me, and he gets to see that I Terra my Hydreigon to fire. So, with this knowledge, he now Terras his Palafin to water, and Choice Band Jet Punches me, and kills me instantly. And I was regretting several life choices at that moment, because I was like, oh my god, you just threw away your Terra, and now you definitely lose this game. That's what I thought, at least. And then I bring in Abomasnow because I can't bring in Cetitan here. It will die to close combat, and this could like get very troublesome. But at this point, he'd Jet Punched into my Hydreigon, knocked it out, so the Double Shock went into Gothitelle. And Gothitelle took it comfortably, so I don't have to worry about electric moves, and he can't Terra the Palmot because Palafin just did. So no Double Shocks for him, only close combat. So I have a very free Trick Room here. And he doubles into Gothitelle, and it takes the Terra Water Banded Jet Punch and the CC. It gets the Trick Room up. From there, I am kind of scared because I don't really know what I'm doing anymore. Because Trick Room is up. He's got Pelipper and Amoonguss in his back, most likely. And I have Cetitan in my back. And Cetitan ain't going to pair up well against those two in Trick Room. Especially as well because my Abomasnow outruns both of them, which is very problematic. But I buckle down, I click Helping Hand Blizzard, Eventually, it's enough to take out both, or not both. It takes out the Palmot, just from like damage it had accrued over time from fake outs and foul plays. I'm sorry if my memory is like super hazy, but like I'm just kind of going by what I remember. But at this point, it's Pelipper and Palafin out on the field, and my Gothitelle is in Jet Punch range. So I have to make a very risky turn, like, as I don't want Abomasnow to take damage. I need this rain gone, and I need Cetitan out on the field. Gothitelle is going down here no matter what, so I have to bite the bullet and just let it die. Jet Punch goes out into Gothitelle, and now my Shadow Tag is broken, and Gothitelle is down. A Hurricane comes out from Pelipper, and Cetitan takes like 15% from it. And I was like, okay, this Pokemon is absurdly bulky and fat and stupid. But it also gets confused, and my heart stops. Because now I'm horrified, because I need to figure out a way through this game and also get lucky. So at that point, I kind of figured, okay, I need to make a game-winning play here. And I assumed immediately, because once Shadow Tag was broken, I knew all Cedric wanted to do was switch out this Pal. And I knew it was definitely going to be a Mungus in the back, so I presumed he was going to do that, and I immediately make the call out, because his Pelipper is eject button, which had not come into play at all during the entire set. But I knew it was eject button from his open sheet, and I immediately knew my play, which was to Ice Shard into Pelipper and force the Palafin back out and Energy Ball it. And if I did that, I knew I could win the game. Like, there was an out. So I break through confusion with Cetitan. Ice Shard goes into Pelipper as the Amoonguss switches in for Palafin. And I said, no, bring the Palafin back. Let's kill it. And Energy Ball sure does go into the Palafin and kills it. And I pop off extremely hard. And I scream very loudly. And I apologize if anyone had heard that in the venue, because that was a very loud moment. But even then, that's still not enough to win me the game, because I had to deal with this full HP, like, Amoonguss and this, like, decently, like, healthy Pelipper. So, like, there was an out now. And there were 2 more turns of Trick Room, and I just had to, like, brace for impact. I just had to make it through 2 more turns of my Trick Room. So I protect Abomasnow, and I try to go for an Ice Shard one last time with my Cetitan before it goes to sleep. Because I'm like, okay, let's put Pelipper in range of Energy Ball. And do that, we can win the game. Hits itself in confusion and gets spored, so I don't even get the turn to, like, burn sleep. I'm like, alright, wonderful. There's 1 more turn of Trick Room left. Or no, Trick Room had actually ran out by this time. I'm sorry, I completely... But yeah, there was 1 more turn of Trick Room, so Trick Room wears off. And at this point, it is down to Abomasnow and Cetitan, who is asleep and confused. So basically, I need Abomasnow to carry an immense amount of, like, it needs to put in an immense amount of work. And I kind of deducted, I was like, this Energy Ball will not kill Pelipper, and I need this Amoonguss in range of it needs to be in range of Ice Spinner for me to win this game. So, very haphazardly, I say, screw it, you're hitting this Blizzard or else we die. Because there's no other option. It literally is hit Blizzard or die. And Abomasnow certainly does hit Blizzard onto both, in rain. Which is lucky break number 1. I'm capable of putting myself back into this game, even after the confusion, because confusion was in my favor. But that's lucky break number 1. I hit both with Blizzard, and before Abomasnow goes down, it leaves Cetitan with the parting gift of, okay, you can win this game. So it is just Cetitan left, 1v2. It wakes up, immediately hits itself in confusion, and I'm like, oh my god, no. Please don't do this to me. Pelipper goes for Hurricane. It does damage. Oh, no. It went for Hydro Pump, and it missed. And the Amoonguss went for an attack, and it missed. Or no, it didn't miss. It went for Pollen Puff, and it did damage. So I'm, like, freaking out right now because Cetitan just dodged a super crucial hit. Like, it needed to dodge that, or else, as you'll soon find out, it was going to lose. So it dodges on the same turn it hits itself. So lucky break number 2. It finally snaps out of confusion, and it I go for Ice Spinner into Pelipper. The Amoonguss Rage Powders. It gets knocked out by the Ice Spinner. Pelipper goes for another Hydro Pump, and I live on 20 HP. And that's Lucky Break number 3, because Pelipper is certainly in range of Ice Spinner thanks to the Blizzard that I hit earlier. So Cetitan is capable of outrunning and clicking Ice Spinner and finishing off Pelipper. And I screamed very loudly when that happened, because I was very tired of seeing Palafin on my screen, and as well as Pelipper. But I had done it, I had won top 32, and I had entered top 16, where I would face another goddamned Pelipper and Palafin. And I was like, I'm getting very tired of this. Because this was like my 5th Pelipper and Palafin of the weekend. But in top 16, I did play Gavin Michaels. And this was a very similar set composition-wise and like how I approached it. Because Gavin had Goldango, I kind of changed up the game plan, notably. So I knew going in, they have a very aggressive rain mode, like the Palafin's Choice Band again. This Pelipper's a little unorthodox. It has U-turn. Dragonite's actually a big threat to my team. I can't really do much about it. It has multi-scale, but because I have 2 ice types, I'm just going to hope Gavin is scared enough not to bring it. Amoonguss is an interesting one. His was Eject Pack with Leaf Storm, so I wasn't too particularly worried about it coming to the match. However, I was scared of the Terra Ghost Defiant King Gambit, which could like just bypass my superpower from Cetitan, and now this is like an issue. But nonetheless, I kind of like buckled down. I was like, okay, let's just not bring Gothitelle. Let's just bring what we brought before. So Rotom Heat was back on deck. And game 1, very close. I made a couple of plays that I wouldn't say were particularly good, but Gavin did bring the Dragonite, and he led the Dragonite, notably. And it kind of messed me up, like, big time. So I was very scared of Dragonite. Game 2, I figure, okay, I need to prep for this Dragonite accordingly, because it did run through me last game, and now I have to figure out some sort of adaptation immediately, or else it will kill my entire team. Gavin leads he leads King Gambit and Palafin. And I certainly did lead the exact same thing I led game 1, which was Hydreigon and Rotom, because I figured, okay, we're just going to change up how we play turn 1. Let's just not try and shake things up too drastically, because it worked good enough. You just didn't reach the end of the game and won. So I see the Palafin lead. I immediately assume they're going to Sucker Punch and Terra Water Jet Punch me to try and knock out Rotom. So I Terra to Electric, and we go for a Volt Switch into the Palafin like I usually do, except they switch to Pelipper with King Gambit. And now I know immediately where they're going. Jet Punch, Terra Water, Choice Band, let's just get a quick kill on the Rotom. And because I Terra to Electric, it obviously helps me out defensively. I live, and I take 2 knockouts with Hydreigon and Rotom. So from there, that was pretty much the game, because the Pokemon in the back was Goldango, not Dragonite. So I immediately kind of recognized, I'm like, okay, that's weird. He's bringing King Gambit and Goldango. So he wants to take a kill with Palafin super early and then close it out with his 2 steel types. Because once he knows that he's gotten rid of my answer to his steel types, he can just like run through like super easily, because Goldango's Scarf and King Gambit has Sucker Punch. So I'm very scared, because the Dragonite's still a threat, but I am very confident that they're going to try and go the same game plan they did game 2. That sounds weird, but a lot of players will generally, when they expect a game 2 adaptation after winning game 1, they'll say, okay, let's change to this. And then they'll lead something like the Pelipper and Palafin, or like the King Gambit and Palafin, and try and play more aggressive off the bat, just because it's on you to readjust and readapt. Mm-hmm. So I think Gavin kind of expected me to readjust my lead for Dragonite, not so much play differently around the Dragonite. Which is a very fair assumption, because Dragonite's scary, and I didn't want to like lead into it again, but I figured, okay, screw it, we're just going to lead the same thing. So in game 3, I kind of felt this instinct where they were going to lead Palafin and King Gambit again, because generally it's on the opponent now to adapt. And usually it's not go back to the game 1 plan. It's we're going to readjust our game 2 lead to try and play a little more concisely this time. Like, we know what they can do. Let's kind of mix it up and see if we can like catch them off guard because they think that they can answer this lead. Which is something I found myself doing a lot throughout the time where I usually lost. And I noticed that like a lot of players were doing it just because it's early format and like generally you don't have all the answers yet. So you go with what you know, or like you know can possibly win the game. And not so much what you know wins the game. And that's just something they like kind of try and remember, I feel, during open cheat. And like I said, I did it a ton during the tournament where I would just like make stupid decisions and like completely forget what won me my game 1 or my game 2. But anyways, they lead the Palafin again. They lead the King Gambit again. I figure, okay, let's no nonsense this. We're clicking Heat Wave and we're clicking Volt Switch off this Palafin because something notable that I gained from game 2 is because even though it clicked Jet Punch, because Rotom and Palafin Terra'd at the same time, the faster Pokemon's Terra animation will go off first. So I immediately knew Rotom was faster than this Palafin. So it could not get a kill this turn. It had to go for Wave Crash if it wanted to get a kill. So I Volt Switch off the Palafin. It goes into Pelipper. I get an instant knockout immediately. I don't have to worry about rain no more. So Abomasnow is free to set off the snow. And I go for Heat Wave with my my Hydreigon because I know once the rain is gone, I can just click Heat Wave freely. If it burns anything, it gets a free burn. King Gambit's pressured by it. So we have a very consistent like method of attack into it. So I go into Abomasnow, set up the weather, they Iron Head into Hydreigon, and I'm like, perfect, beautiful. We're in an amazing spot, even though this Palafin is boosted. They go into, I think I remember, they went into Goldango, and no, they went into Palafin. No, they went into Goldango. I'm stupid. I'm sorry. This is a like hazy remember. But from there, we kind of just trade blows. They go into Palafin at some point because obviously Abomasnow does not want to sit in front of King Gambit and Goldango. So I try to play defensively. I try to set up an Aurora Veil at some point. And eventually we're in a scenario where it's King Gambit and Palafin on the field. King Gambit is almost like down and out. And Palafin is very much primed to take a kill because it is Terra Watered and it is doing lots of damage with Jet Punch. And I figure, okay, I'm going to knock out King Gambit this turn, with my Hydreigon. Abomasnow can just get a kill onto the Palafin. And for a while, I thought, that's it. That's going to be the game. That's how we win this. And then kind of another thought entered my head where I know Gavin's Palafin is bulky because it took Draco Meteor before. Like in a prior game. It survived my Draco Meteor. So I know it's bulky because normal Palafin does not survive Draco Meteor. So it kind of creeped into my head, but I was like, you want to set Aurora Veil here. Like, again, do it again. Because if this thing lives and it Jet Punches something, it will claim a kill. And in the moment, I kind of freaked out because I thought I had, like, thrown. Because Gavin doubled into Hydreigon, and we trade King Gambit and Hydreigon at that point, pretty much. So I'm, like, completely scared. Because I'm thinking, oh my god, I just threw the game. Because now the Palafin's still, like, healthy, and it can just kill something. And at that point, like... So Abomasnow is also dead because it just eats a Make It Rain from Goldango. But at this point, I figured, okay, your Terra to Electric, the Jet Punch won't do as much. You still have Cetitan in the back that's at full HP, and it's like comfortable to eat a hit. And you're behind the Veil, so like chances are, if you live this, you win the game. And they were locked in to Make It Rain because they had to be able to kill Cetitan and they had to be able to kill Abomasnow. Could not lock into Shadow. So the banded Terra Water Jet Punch comes out. It does like 75% to Rotom behind the Veil, and that's like an ungodly amount of damage. I was not expecting it to do that much, but Rotom is able to live the Make It Rain. It throws out Thunderbolts and it knocks out Palafin. And from there, Cetitan is enough to finish off the Scarf Goldango, even if it's super effective. And it was literally such a close set. Like, my memory's still hazy about it, but it was such a difficult best of 3. Like, it was so close. And like, I actually cried after I had won because it was a lot. Like, it really did mean a lot to me to make it this far with a team like this in the tournament. I've been talking about it for almost like an hour and a half now, so I'm sorry if I like keep ranting on about it, but it was like, it did feel really just incredible to make it so far with a team that like no one else saw the confidence in. That like, I just saw the potential, and like I knew it could go the distance, and it made top 8 at one of the largest regionals in like VGC history. So I'm very overall happy with the performance up till that point. And I guess I can go over my set with GSOC real quick. There's not much to it because I kind of got floored. And it's kind of one of the team's weaknesses that I didn't realize until, again, this tournament. Garganical is a nightmare for the team. But there are a couple tools you have to get rid of it. I definitely don't think I played well versus GSOC. I think he just played way better. And unfortunately, like, I was not playing my best, especially because I was already tired after playing 2 Palafin Reigns, and that like, that's a lot of stress on the brain. Like, you got to worry about what Palafin's doing at any moment, and it's scary. But it was like, it was a difficult matchup to begin with, but Terra Poison Garg was just super difficult to break through, and GSOC like kind of recognized all of my tricks immediately. Like, I tried tricking it, choice specs to cripple it. I tried doing a lot of things to just stop it in its tracks, and he played really well around it. So I gotta give props to him. Like, losing to the guy that won the regional, I'm not very mad about it at all. And overall, I'm just very happy with how the team performed. And I think Snow has a lot of potential overall. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get to see a lot of that potential now that Paradox Pokemon are back. And Snow does not like Paradox Pokemon for the most part, unless you want to get crazy with Iron Bundle. But overall, I'm very content with this team and its run. I didn't expect to go very far at San Diego. My goal was to just make top cut and like leave it at that. And if I make top cut, then like I'm happy with it. But a top 8 performance, it went away from a medal, but you can't have everything. But like I said, overall, very happy with this team and its performance.
Yeah, it was a really, really impressive run with a, like you said, a team that no one really saw coming, and just a very, like, again, specifically Titan, I think, is one of my favorite Pokemon from this generation. And one of the
he's got to be one of my favorites. He's so cool.
He is. And I mean, I love the way like Cetitan walks. It is one of my favorites. So yeah, I'm really happy to see it do well, and I'm really happy that you came on the channel to talk about it, because I learned a lot from this, and it's just a very different way of approaching the format that just a very different perspective, I guess. But yeah, so on that note, did you have any final words or shoutouts that you wanted to give?
Oh yeah, first of all, once again, thank you so much for having me on the channel. I hope to future with another internet's winning team, so we can have that is twice as long as the other one. But I do want to give a shout outs to all my friends that I nicknamed on this team: Jackson, Coffee, Cream, Matthias, Z, Rob, Will, and Kunal. They're all like super helped out either motivational wise for this tournament. I just love nicknaming my Pokemon after my friends. Because, I don't know, there's a special friendship bond. But my parents, I gotta thank them. They supported me a lot throughout my practice for this tournament. They just supported me a lot in between rounds. Like, once again, Kareem and Rob, Will, and Kunal, Matthias, Jackson, they were all like super useful. They helped me out a ton in call, like building wise. My friend Matt, who helped me prep the Mousehold Annihilate matchup a ton, and that's kind of where we got the idea for Mirror Herb from Kunal. Like, initially, there's just a lot of people that made this team possible and made this run possible. So I just want to give a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart, and hopefully I can put up some more good results for you guys in the future.
Yeah, I'm not stressed about that at all. I'm sure you were going to put up more results, starting potentially.
Here's two.
You going to Orlando?
Yeah, I am.
All right, yeah. So I'm wouldn't be shocked to see you back in Top Cut over there, and yeah, and hopefully with a new, cool, innovative team just like this one. Yeah. Well, yeah. But that's all. That's all that I got. I definitely recommend if you have more Series 1 to play that you try this team out. And yeah, thank you all for watching. And until next time, I will see you all later.
Bye bye.